Merry meet. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and this episode is all about the third eye and intuition. So, first of all, I would just like to say happy full moon. It's the happy full moon tonight. And if you have some plans, I hope that they are great. This is a great full moon in Gemini. It's perfect for working with that Gemini energy, especially that energy that helps us see different sides of things and can also help us differentiate between the one that is best for our path and maybe the one that's not as great. So, the full moon is a great time to be talking about intuition in the first place because many people find that their intuition is heightened at this time. Now, some find that that heightening of the intuition actually continues into the waning half of the lunar phase and actually may amplify as you get closer to the dark moon. A lot of this has to do with that turning inward of energy that happens in the second half of the cycle. But for now, here at the full moon, we're celebrating kind of that peak of energy, and for many of us, heightened dreams and heightened intuition. If you're here live, you can definitely drop me comments or questions and I will answer those and get to those. And there were some people who sent me some questions earlier. I'm going to make sure that I address all of those in tonight's episode. So I'm just going to dive right in. We'll start talking about the third eye. So, third eye is our energetic center that is connected to our intuition. It's not the only thing that the third eye does. The third eye also is connected to our dreams and to our vision, our perception, and we'll be talking about all of this tonight. Now, the third eye is located in the center of the head, slightly above the eyes. So, it's not actually in line with the physical eyes, it's slightly above. Now, one of the most common questions that I get is how do I open my third eye? How do I increase my intuition? And usually what happens is there is a challenge that people who are asking this question have. So this challenge may fall into one or more categories. So sometimes it can have to do with self-doubt, doubting your own abilities. Sometimes it can have to do with fear, and it can also have to do with blockages. Now, someone also mentioned, Nancy mentioned feeling a heaviness in the third eye. So we're going to talk about that at the end. I'm going to show some exercises, and one in particular would be good at addressing that. I think that when we feel a heaviness in the third eye, like she was mentioning, it just doesn't feel like it's open. So hopefully everything we're going to talk about tonight will help. I'm going to address all of these today, but for now, I'd just like to give us an overview of what the third eye is in the first place. So in Sanskrit, the third eye is called ajna, A-J-N-A, is usually the spelling that you'll see. It translates to two different things. It translates to perceive and to command. And if you look at these two different interpretations, it speaks to the two functions of the third eye. So the first thing is that we perceive things that come in through our physical eyes, they go into our mind, and through the third eye, we're actually able to have perception of what that thing is. So it helps us, form images through our creative visualization as well, and that allows us to command or to create our reality. So there's an intake of information in the perception part, and then in that command part, there's actually an ability to reach out beyond us and create something. So we often talk about the throat chakra as being that creative center, and there is an intimate connection between the third eye and the throat. And we'll be talking a lot about that at the end because I think the answer to a lot of people's questions are going to be surprised. But a lot of people who feel that they have blockages of the third eye or feel that there's a blockage of intuition, actually, there's probably not. It could be. In some cases, it is. But a lot of times, the blockages or the issues are below the third eye. So it's really important that we recognize that. So the third eye is our organ of psychic perception or psychic vision, just like our physical eyes, they see the things in the physical world. Our third eye allows us to see the things in the psychic world. Now, it is the first chakra that's not actually in the body. If you think about it, if you cut your head off it is up in a different realm than the rest of these chakras that exist in the body. In fact, even the throat chakra exists in the body. What that means is this is a much more mental chakra. And physically, it is associated with the pituitary and the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is a very interesting gland. I think it's important for us to talk about it because you'll start to see some connections between that physical aspect that's connected to the energetic part of our body, our third eye, and how that plays out in possibly some of these blockages that we feel that we have. Now, the pineal gland is at the center of the head. It's right about at eye level. So right where we feel that this third eye is, so like if you were to reach it, a lot of us, because we can't reach into our heads, will actually feel for the third eye right here. But behind that, deep within the center of your brain, is your pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is very fascinating. For one, for one, scientists and those who study it, they actually don't know a lot about it. So despite the fact that you'll read some things about it, there's so much that we don't know about the pineal gland. The other thing that's really fascinating about the pineal gland is that in an evolutionary perspective, there's evidence that suggests that the pineal gland was once closer to the top of the head, closer to the crown. And in fact, if you look at reptiles, some reptiles still have a remnant of that third eye on top of their heads. So I have an iguana, her name is Yoshi, and she has her little third eye on top of her head. Now, the third eye does not see images, but it does see light. So theoretically, what it's doing in a reptile is it's allowing them to see things that are going on above them. So a change in light patterns would suggest perhaps a bird or an enemy that was above, a predator. But what it also suggests, though, is why did the third eye and the pineal gland change? So why is it inside the body now and not on the outside as it may have used to have been? What's also fascinating is that in human embryos, when the pineal gland is first formed in the beginning of development, it's actually starts as a third eye. So 3 physical eyes in the body, and eventually it will degenerate into the pineal gland and then it moves into the center of the brain. So very interesting. So all of this really begs the question, is there a mystical connection to the pineal gland? So it's a rhetorical question. I don't have an answer for it. I think the answer is yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking about it. But it is very interesting. And the fact that it lays dormant in so many people. Now, if you're watching this episode right now, if you're following me, I know that you're really interested in this. So this is not really for us. It's not laying dormant in us. But for most of the population, it does lay dormant. Now, the other thing about the pineal gland that's interesting is it is connected to our melatonin production. So a few people who sent me some questions this week mentioned that they have a lot of trouble sleeping. I'm one of those people as well. Now, the melatonin that is produced by the pineal gland is very sensitive to light, as we mentioned. So just like in the reptile, it's very sensitive to light in us too. And it can be stimulated through light. So there are some ways that we can help with sleep. So besides taking melatonin, which I do think if it's something that you're able to take and it's okay in your body, I think it's a good thing. I've taken it, it works. But the other thing to consider is how much light is coming in through your eyes, but also imagine this gland in the center of the body, it's receiving light signals from the eyes. So even when the eyes are closed, close your eyes now, you can still sense light. There's still light coming in. So when you have a room that's not fully dark, if you have a lot of interruptions during sleep, some of this can affect your ability to sleep, the ability of the pineal gland to create melatonin. For that reason, an eye mask is really great for sleeping if you can't sleep in a place that's very dark. I'm going to talk more about this later because there are some exercises as well that we can use to stimulate the pineal gland, and then by that, we will stimulate the third eye. Now, the third eye is usually visualized as indigo, and there are 2 kind of systems. Most people agree on the colors of all of the chakras up to the third eye. So once we get to the third eye, some people will say that this is indigo, and then some people will say that it's violet. If you consider the third eye indigo, which is a very, very dark, dark, deep blue, then you probably will consider the crown to be amethyst or violet color. And if instead you visualize the third eye as the violet color, then probably you visualize the crown as white light. It doesn't really matter which way you visualize it. Those are two very commonly accepted ways. I would say probably the more common one is the deep blue of indigo. And in fact, here is a picture of the third eye symbol. So every chakra has a symbol that goes with it. Each one is a lotus with a certain number of petals. In this case, there are two petals. This could talk or speak to the fact that there's a duality in this chakra, and also the idea that it is above versus below. So in order to really, and I should mention, we notice that the arrow points downward. So to me, this is an indication that if you want to work here, you actually should be looking downward first. Now there is this duality here because there are three main naughty lines or three energy channels of the body. There is the sushumna, which goes through the center of the body and really runs up along the spinal cord. So these are all energetic channels that are like along physical channels as well. And then there's the Ida and the Pingala. Now the Ida is our feminine energy channel and the Pingala is the masculine energy channel. Now these interweave around the sushumna and they meet in two places. So they meet at the root and they meet at the third eye. So again, this kind of duality of this, that there is these two energies that connect in two different spots in the body, also connects the third eye to the root. So again, if we're asking questions about how do I develop my third eye, the answer is down, way down below in the base chakra. We're going to get to all that in the end, though, when we talk about how can you strengthen the third eye. We got a lot of ways we can do that. Now, the function here of the third eye is taking in information and putting it into meaningful patterns. So we need to be able to recognize the patterns of the information that's coming in, and that really is the core of our intuition. Now, our intuition may feel like aha moments. So those moments when, okay, all the patterns are revealed or realized. And they may also feel like seeing the bigger picture. So being outside of ourselves and being able to see more than what we can see when we're inside. It can also feel like seeing deeper inherent meanings in things. Now, each chakra has a demon. Sometimes people call it a demon. I would probably call it more of a challenge. And the biggest challenge here for the third eye is this idea of illusion. So illusion is a falseness that we fixate on. So it pulls us away from how things really are, and it causes us to lose that open-minded perception. So in order to be really, truly intuitive, we need to be very expansive and very open when it comes to the energy up in the higher chakras. Now, if we're operating under an illusion, what happens is that we start to interpret the things that are coming in incorrectly. And our illusions are generally fear-based. So there are people who've asked, how can I tell if it's intuition? Well, one good way to tell if something is intuition is to ask yourself how fear-based the idea is. If the idea is quite fear-based, there is a better than good chance that it is illusion. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people who have intuitions of bad things happening, but oftentimes, if you really talk to them about it, or you think about any that have happened for yourself, there isn't this like startling fear that comes with it. It's generally just a knowing. Even if it's a bad thing, it's generally a knowing. So that would be one of my best pieces of advice. If you're really truly wondering whether it's illusion or fear, intuition or fear, ask yourself. Actually, I should say, back up. If you're asking yourself if it's intuition or not, ask yourself how fear-based it is. Now, when we can let go of that fear, we're going to be more able to see the archetypes, the symbols, all the signs coming in around us. Now, when we're stuck in that fear, we're really not able to see any of it. And in fact, maybe we can see it, but when it comes in, we can't interpret it the right way. Now, another thing that is very connected to the third eye are dreams. They're very, very important to the sixth chakra. And in fact, what dreams really do is they connect us from our lower chakras up into our higher energy centers. And they really allow us to see things in a different light. Now, our unconscious minds and the collective unconscious cannot speak to us in words. And so, what it does is it will create symbols that may show up in our dreams. And they are ways to get the message through the conscious mind. Because the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, they really can't, they don't, it's like they're not speaking the same language. Like they need an interpreter. And a lot of times that's what our dreams will be. Now, dreams can bring us in answers to problems that we couldn't solve while we were awake. And they may also come in the form of nightmares. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about nightmares at the end because they are an indication that something may be going awry in the third eye. But nightmares in general are often going to be influenced by negative energy that may have taken place around the day or what you were doing during that day. So I had gone to a cave a while ago, like months ago. There was this cave that I went to, and I didn't really know it when I was there, but I read about it later. It was said to be haunted. And when I was there, there's definitely some negative energy I felt. I really couldn't stay in it very long. I had to leave very quickly. And that night I had a terrible nightmare. But I am very sure that that nightmare had to do with that negative energy that I picked up during the day. So that can sometimes be what fuels the nightmares. But nightmares can also be the playing out of our fear-based scenarios. So again, remember, fear is going to be the enemy of our intuition. So whenever we're experiencing that, we're probably not tapped into our true intuition. Now, intuition is obviously what many people want to know more about. Now, the thing is that it doesn't usually, just like dreams we can often suggest, like we could suggest going to sleep and having a certain type of dream. We can be very suggestive with our intuition. For example, we want an answer about something, but as most people have discovered, intuition doesn't usually come on command. It may for some people, but for the majority of people, it's not something we can command. And so someone in the group was asking about, or was mentioning that it's too bad that it doesn't. Like, it would be great if you could just know the numbers of the lottery or something, or use the intuition that you have in other areas to serve you in ways like that. But just like our creativity that comes from the throat chakra, our intuition, it doesn't work as well when it's forced. And it does require more openness and receptivity. So if you want answers, you want to be more open, but in that openness, there's also an element of letting go and not forcing. So just opening up to whatever comes, not to a specific thing that you're asking about. And that's the sad part about intuition. I wish it was something that we could just command, but for most of it isn't. I will say, though, that the more you develop it, the better you do get at what I would call like a slight commanding of it. Like, you are able to kind of ask questions and get answers in a more effective way the more open you are and the more you stimulate your third eye. Now, our culture is also one that favors logic over intuition. So this is a big hindrance for people like us, because what that means is that most of us are taught from a very young age to suppress our intuitive skills. And those who don't suppress it, they still have to deal with the collective, which is living in a world that doesn't really take this stuff seriously. So I'll talk about this again at the end. This is where working with our solar plexus and the idea of belief can come in, because we do have a lot to combat, knowing that we already come in at a disadvantage by being born into a world that doesn't really believe in most of this stuff. Now, psychologically, our intuition starts to develop, and our third eye generally starts to develop strongly at about age 12, a little bit after age 12. This is about the time that a teenager is starting to develop more of their will, their true will, and starting to understand who they are, kind of discarding certain things that are not about them, and then accepting other things that they do feel resonates with them. But in order to further develop the intuition, many people will say that it comes after some moment of spiritual awakening. And in fact, it can often come after a period of darkness. So those who wrote, a few people wrote into me about kind of being in a moment of darkness or a dark night of the soul, and having gone through my own dark night of the soul, I will tell you that on the other side of it, my intuition expanded exponentially. Now, it has to do with some things that I did in the meantime, which I will share some of them with you at the end. But do know that if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you are in that dark space, the spiritual awakening that can come afterwards can be the answer to your intuition expanding. Now, like all of our chakras, the third eye can be damaged through trauma. But like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times when we have blockages that are perceived as being in the third eye, they are actually in another place of the body, of the energetic body. Now, some of the traumas that could cause issues of the third eye would be people who are forced to repress memories. So any major traumas, especially when you were young, that has caused you to repress memories. Anytime we're repressing anything in the mind, this is a constriction of the third eye. So if we got some repression, we definitely have some constriction here. Now, what trauma will do is it causes us to really close down that sixth chakra and make it more deficient, because we're spending energy repressing those memories. Now, the energy of the sixth chakra that's used to repress the energies could instead be used to be more open and receiving. That's the kind of the switch that we want to try to make. The children may often be taught also to distrust intuition. So it's hard for us to remember all of those very, very early years, but you may remember, having abilities and gifts that were perhaps even stronger when you were a child. And if you spoke about them to others, unless you had caregivers and people around you that were very supportive of your gifts, they probably told you things like, you don't really see that, that's not really there, you don't really feel that, that's not really happening. So when we're constantly told those negative messages that conflict with what we know is happening, it causes that disconnect. And we're too little when this is all happening to be able to rationalize that on our own. Now today, when we're adults, of course we'd be able to say, well, you're saying I don't see it and I do see it, so I'm going to choose either to think I'm crazy and go with your opinion, or to actually accept my own opinion. But we can't really do that when we're that little. So again, a lot of us come in with a little bit of a disability here, a disadvantage when it comes to our intuition. Now, let's talk for a moment about deficient versus excessive energy. So, deficient energy is probably what we would call blocked. Like, again, I don't really like the word, like, I'll use the word blockages, but we don't usually have, in fact, I shouldn't say we don't have blocked chakras. So chakras can be constricted, which means that a little bit of energy is going through. It's like a stream that you threw a rock in, and the water has to divert to different pathways. If you throw a huge rock in, only a little trickle gets through. That's usually what constriction looks like, not full blockage of the full blocking of the chakra. Now, our blockages, on the other hand, are the things that are causing the constriction. Now, there can also be excessive energy, which means that the chakra is too open. That just means there's too much energy flowing through. Now, a few people wrote to me and asked, how do I know if my chakras are open or closed, or if it's deficient or it's like excessive energy? So here are some things that will help you tell. Now, with the deficient, and by the way, like all chakras, you can have things on both sides. So you can have deficient energy and excessive energy, and it can flip back and forth. And that just means that we have an issue of this chakra which we want to work with. So to have deficient energy, what you may experience is difficulty imagining life any other way. So if you think about the way that your life is right now, you try to imagine something else, you can't really see it. That there is a bit of deficient energy in the third eye. Because remember, the third eye is the expansive energy that opens us up to possibilities. Now, another thing that may show you that you have deficient energy here is a refusal or a denial to see how things really are. So if you are not able to fully accept reality, or seeing the way that reality is, if something is in front of you and you're not able to see it for what it is, that would suggest deficient energy here. Another thing can be head blind, is the word that we use. So in head blind, the person fails to notice the nuances of what are going around them. So you may experience this yourself, or you may know people like this where they just don't pick up on the things that other people are picking up on. That again would be a sign that maybe there's deficient energy in the third eye center. So a few other things that could be indications here are poor vision, though I'm going to say if that's the only symptom you have is poor vision, and vision gets worse as we get older. I do not feel that in and of itself is a sign that there's deficient energy in the third eye. But if you have that on top of a bunch of other things, then you may want to look at it. Or if your eyes have changed recently, you might want to explore this as well. Another indication of deficient energy here could be poor memory, difficulty seeing the future, like we said, lacking imagination. Imagination is all about this chakra. Difficulty visualizing. There's a lot of people who have trouble visualizing, and I wouldn't say necessarily that they all have third eye deficient energy, but if you have that and more things on the list, then you might want to explore this chakra as well. Poor dream recall, though I should say unless medicated, because medication will create poor dream recall, but just poor dream recall in general can be an indication of deficient energy. And also monopolarization. So this is an idea that there's like one right way. Because remember, this chakra is expansive. So it's not about one right way, it's about a bunch of right ways, and then being able to see the one that's going to be most facilitative to your path right now. Now, excessive energy looks a little different, and you can flip back and forth between these. So in excess of energy, you tend to get lost in the upper chakras. It's almost like living with the body, the head cut off of the body, just being up in the head all the time. People with excessive energy will feel like there's no groundedness. A remedy here is to ground, to work with the root chakra, which we're going to talk about when we get into the attunement practices. An ability to discern truth from fantasy is impaired when the energy is really excessive. So not being able to tell the difference between a fantasy world and the real world. Runaway psychic energy, this can feel, again, like you can't tell the difference between illusion and intuition. It just feels like it's kind of running away from you, thinking that everything is a sign. Yes, some things are signs, but some things are, like Freud said, it's sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. It's just what it is. So seeing that everything is a sign might mean excessive energy. Hallucinations, delusions, obsessions, these can mean we're really, really way too much energy up here in the head. Difficulty concentrating and some nightmares can also indicate we got some excessive energy going on. The traumas and abuses that can lead to issues of a third eye, again, we've spoken about this, but being told that what you're seeing isn't really there, that can be a disconnect. Or what you're feeling isn't really true, an invalidation of our psychic experiences, and also really ugly and frightening environment, especially at a young age. So war-torn areas, areas that are full of abuse and violence, these can cause, there's enough trauma here to cause issues in the third eye. So before I get into the correspondences and the attunement practices, I just wanted to reiterate a few physical manifestations that may show you that you should work with the third eye a little bit more. This would be headaches. So if you have headaches, especially if they are kind of come out of nowhere and they're newer. So sometimes like headaches just simply come from not drinking enough water or eating enough food. When they have physical explanations, I don't think they're really connected to the third eye. But when we have headaches that appear to not be connected, they may have to do with the third eye. I've spent a lot of time on the computer, especially working from home in both of my jobs, and I noticed getting a lot of headaches. And I do think that that was an issue of the pineal gland, too much light, blue light coming into the eyes. All of this can affect our third eye. Vision problems, like I mentioned, on their own, probably not. Paired with a bunch of things, could be difficulty concentrating, knowing that you have pituitary or pineal gland issues or problems, eye strain, blurred vision, just kind of out of nowhere. And again, like I said, difficulty sleeping usually means that we've got something going on with the third eye. So, how do we support the third eye if we know that we have some issues here, or if we want to work further with it in our intuition? So, the first thing is witches, we can use our correspondences and we can create rituals using some of these that just open us up to the energy of the third eye. So, for example, the element that's associated, there are elements associated with most of the chakras, but the third eye and the crown do not have any. Well, many people will say the element of light, it's not one of our five elements that we as witches talk about, but light really is very much connected to the third eye and shows you a way that you can work with it. If you have never done candle gazing before, I highly recommend it. I think I mentioned this for someone, and I can't remember who it was who had asked me a question, but if you want to stimulate the third eye, candle gazing can be very helpful. What you do in candle gazing is you turn off the lights. I would recommend having like maybe a salt lamp in the background or some kind of low dim light, and then you light a candle, and you ideally want the candle to be about eye level with you, so maybe on a little bit below it could be, but on a table, you could sit at a low table, and then what you want to do is kind of let your eyes go a little heavy, and then you just stare at the center of the flame. So it's highly effective at stimulating the pineal gland, which means it can help with sleep. There's people who have done it and they do it over periods of time. I would suggest like trying to set up a regular practice of it, which means you're doing it several times a week, maybe for a few minutes at a time, up to like maybe 5 minutes. I really wouldn't go beyond 10 minutes at it. And try that. And many people have found that it helps with their sleep. And also, many people have found that it helps with expanding the third eye. So, it's a really great way to bring that element of light, which we know affects this chakra. The planets that are associated with the third eye are Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, and Neptune, which is the planet of our intuition and dreams. That makes a lot of sense. The metal associated here is silver. The incense you can use, mugwort is really great. And if you go to Mountain Rose Herbs, they have mugwort bundles that are look like a sage smudge stick, and you can use that. Star anise, acacia is a really good one, and saffron. Those are great incenses for the third eye. But also, because the third eye is about your intuition, you can also use your intuition. So, which incense do you think is going to stimulate your third eye? That's the one I would choose. Minerals here, anything that is a dark blue. So, for example, kyanite, I love. Iolite is a great one. Lapis or sodalite is a little cheaper than lapis, but very similar. Sapphire and amethyst as well. So any blue stones can work here. That is not an exhaustive list. The deities that you can work with to expand your third eye, if you want to create a ritual or an offering to a deity to kind of aid you in opening your third eye, the deities are usually separated into the Hindu deities and then all other pantheons. And this just simply has to do with the fact that the chakra system comes from India. So the Hindu deities usually associated here are Shakti Hakini. Now, Hakini, I'm going to show you a mudra later called the Hakini mudra that will open up your intuition. Hakini is a form of Shakti, which is the divine feminine energy, and the Hakini form of it is the intuitive form. So we can think of this as a deity, as a goddess, or as an archetypal energy as well. Parama Shiva is a form of Shiva that's associated with intuition, and then Krishna. Now, other pantheons, we have Isis, Iris. Iris is very good because it's a goddess of light, rainbows, and kind of opening up the expansiveness of the mind. Morpheus is a Greek god of dreams. So if you want to work more with like the dream aspect of your intuition, Morpheus is a great god to work with. Thamus was a Titan. Titan, who is at the Oracle of Delphi. So the Oracle of Delphi obviously is where the predictions were made in Greek mythology. So all these gods can work. But again, because this is about your intuition, use your intuition. If there's a god or goddess that's speaking to you, choose that one to work with. Now, here's some attunement practices. Attunement practices are things that we can do to help us attune to the energy of a certain chakra. And I just was looking down. I saw Diane is here. Hi, Diane. And Julia's here. Hi, guys. So attunement practices that we can use are creative visualization, especially with art. So I think like drawing, even if you're not an artist or not very artistic, drawing, coloring. So some of those adult coloring books that have mandalas, things like that. This can be very great for the third eye attunement. Visual stimulation of any kind. So I mentioned the candle gazing, great, great thing to try. And again, it's one of those things like Julia had said here that she needs to keep doing it. We've talked about it before, but it is one of those things that it's good, but it's way better if you can make it more of a regular practice. And that doesn't mean that it has to be every day, but we just want to be doing it more often than not, probably. Yogic eye exercises. I'm going to show some at the end that are great for the third eye. These are great for strengthening the third eye and the pineal gland. Third eye massage, I'm going to show some at the end. We're getting there. We're almost there. But just kind of listing off what we're going to be talking about. Now, meditation is also very good for the third eye and any of the upper chakras. So this can be single focus meditation like a mandala, so just focusing on an image perhaps, or it could be guided visualization, guided meditation as well. Dream work, that makes a lot of sense. If you do have a therapist and you do psychotherapy, a few things that you could work on would be color drawing art therapy. So if your therapist does art therapy, very good for the third eye. Working with your memories, so especially if you feel that there are repressed memories, if you can find a therapist who does some hypnosis, that can be really good. And what else? Connecting images to feelings. So really being able to, visualize something and then be able to tell what that feeling is that's associated with it. Past life regression, also really good for the third eye, for strengthening the pineal gland. And as far as yoga goes, I think that any pose that brings your forehead down to the earth, so child pose is a good one, forward folds where you can bring the head down to blocks or to pillows or a bolster, that's also very good for the third eye. Now, for most people, like I mentioned in the beginning, for most people, the third eye is going to be less about healing it, less about like finding blockages here than it is going to be about developing it. So probably our best bet when we want to tackle the third eye and intuition is to focus on all the chakras below it, or at least to identify one or two crucial ones that may be where your blockages are. So pair that with stimulating third eye exercises. So to me, that is going to be the best way to be working with your intuition. So really learning how to look long enough with enough patience that you actually see what you're looking for. So we live in that hustle and bustle fast world. We want everything now, right? But this kind of stuff, it doesn't come that way for everybody. Some people, it's sudden insights and their intuition always works and they always know all the answers. But for many of us, it takes time and commitment and patience. But nothing good comes without a little bit of wait. So just know, it is challenging, it is time consuming, it requires patience to really strengthen the third eye, but it's well worth it. So let's talk about where our blockages could come from, okay? So I mentioned before that a lot of it can have to do with fear, it can have to do with belief, it can have to do with blockages in other parts of the energetic body. Everything beneath the third eye is fair game for where it could be coming from. But there's a couple of places that are more common than others. Now, I'm just going to look here because I'm trying to keep track of some of the questions people ask me. So there's actually a couple of Debbies in the group, and two different Debbies have asked a question about the third eye. And one of them asked us, or mentioned that she felt that she had lost some of her abilities over the years. And she felt that there was some stress and sadness and loneliness that might have happened over the past few years that might have contributed to it. So I do think that there's something to speak about here, because whenever we say that we have stress or we have sadness or things like that, we definitely have some kind of blockages in our lower chakras. So what I had said to her before is that I feel that if you can find those places, those centers. So where is the stress coming from? What energetic center do we need to go to work with the stress? It's probably the root, which I'll mention in more detail in a moment. Sadness can often come from the heart. So that would be another place to probably work, which again, I'm going to talk about in a moment. But it really is when we feel that we're having those kind of negative feelings and negative emotions. It's like anything else. Like if you've ever studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I've talked about it a few times, and I'll probably do an episode where I talk more about it. It's like a pyramid that shows us these levels of the needs that we have. And at the very bottom are all of our basic needs of stability and security and food. We need to know where we're going to live, where we're going to sleep, what we're going to eat. And if those things aren't stable, like if we're very stressed about things like that, it's going to be hard to be working on these higher energetic centers, because the third eye is way up at the top. It would be associated with the very near the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So the same thing goes a little bit higher up in that pyramid is our relationships, our connections to other people, feeling like we fit in. And if we're not connecting, if we're sad, if we're lonely, we're definitely going to have some blockages here in the kind of that middle part of the pyramid. If you kind of imagine the body as a pyramid, which means that we're not getting up into this higher center as effectively. So, the throat chakra, I'm going to kind of do this in turn, but the throat chakra is one place I would look, okay? So the throat chakra is a place where we can have blockages. If you feel that you have blockages in your throat, then it's going to make it harder to hear with your spiritual ears. Now, the throat is so intimately connected to the third chakra, which is our spiritual eyes. So all of this relates. So if you feel you're having issues with the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, just look a little bit below it at the throat. Now here we can do chanting, we can try singing to kind of open up that space. We can do a bee's breath. I've showed it before. It's where we block the ears and we make a humming sound. This really stimulates the throat chakra well. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, the throat chakra is one I want to work with, I'm just going to let you know that I have episodes for all of the lower chakras already done. So you can find them pinned to the top of the group. They're on my YouTube, Body, Mind, Witchcraft. And if you are listening and you feel like that's a chakra I want to work with, go watch that episode and see if you've got any questions. Then you can come back and talk to me. As far as the heart chakra goes, that's below it, we can have issues here. Now, the heart is the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. Here we have emotional blockages. And if we have those, it's going to impede the energy up to the third eye. So remedies for this would be doing some shadow work, maybe doing some restorative yoga or restorative heart openers, things like that. Working with a therapist to kind of work through your emotions. Again, I have a whole episode on the heart chakra, but there can often be major blockages, and especially for anybody saying, I'm feeling kind of sadness and loneliness, I would be looking and exploring the heart more. The solar plexus is going to be a big one for people who are wanting to work with their intuition. The solar plexus, which is our third chakra here in the center of the body, this is our fire center. It's called Manipura, and it's a big one because remember what I talked about in the beginning, that whole collective that experiences that preference for logic or for logic and rational thought over intuition. It creates a society where many people don't believe in this stuff. So even if you believe in your own intuition and you believe in the unseen and you believe in everything beyond you, you still live here. You're still connected to the collective. So you're still getting some of that unconscious self-doubt coming through. Now, other people may know that they have conscious self-doubt. That could have to do with early experiences where someone, a caregiver or someone very important to you, told you that you could not trust what you see or could not trust what you feel or what you perceive. Okay, so if that resonates with you, your solar plexus is one that you definitely want to work with. And I would probably say that most people should work here a little bit, if anything, to just try to kind of dislodge some of those unconscious blockages in our self-doubt, trying to transform that into self-belief. So remedies here, are really kind of doing a self-belief practice, maybe working with this energy center. You can do a lot of breath work to really fire up this center. You can also really working with what you're eating. It seems strange that we talk about eating when it comes to the third eye, but if you want to connect to the solar plexus, it's important that we have good digestion. And below that is the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra has to do with water and the ability to flow. So remember we said earlier, you can't really have good intuition if you have constrictive energy. Working with the sacral chakra allows us to open up our energy and really open up to the experience of flow. So again, I have episodes on all of these. So I'd suggest kind of going back and watching them again, maybe pick one and watch them and kind of work with that chakra as you're working with the third eye exercises. So do it together. And then finally, here's the biggest one, I think, is the root. So the root is probably the one that nobody thinks of because it's so far away from the third eye. Why would we be grounding down to work here? But if you think about trees, you can't really lift up your branches to the sky unless you lay the roots down first. So somebody asked me, Valerie, in fact, she asked me, how can I trust my intuition if I'm stuck in fight or flight? So the answer here is to work with the root chakra, to really try to get grounded. If you're in fight or flight, that means we've got too much energy that's going on, that's in an anxious state, and we really need more groundedness. So the root is where we determine, are we grounded? Are we ungrounded? How stable are we? Many spiritual people like us forget this area. We're all up in the spiritual centers and we really forget that idea of grounding. So if you're going to work with the third eye, with your intuition, I would suggest anytime you do any exercises, first ground down. And it could be as simple as closing your eyes and using your will to send your energetic roots down below you. So if you are interested in learning more about the root chakra, there's an episode on that as well. And in the future, I'll be probably doing more episodes on each. And if you're not already part of my membership, Shadow Seekers, we're going to be diving in and doing a whole month on each chakra eventually. So get in on the waiting list. We'll be opening up in a few more months. We just closed and took on some new members. So I will tell you that if you're watching this, there are still 2 spots that we did not fill. So if you are interested in taking either one of those, let me know, message me, and I will get you the information you need. Otherwise, we're reopening in March, and maybe that'll be a great time to join and start doing some more work. We're definitely going to get into the third eye and all the other chakras as well. Now, let's see here. I've got another question. Is Betsy asked me, how do I know if my intuition or my third eye is speaking to me? I think one thing that's really important is to ask yourself, where in the body do you usually experience intuition? So just to tell a brief little story, and I know we're running out of time, and I'm still going to do a couple exercises here, but I heard, and you probably hear this too, that many people will say that your intuition speaks to you through your gut. And while it's true that it does for a lot of people, it doesn't for everybody. And for me, that idea actually inhibited my intuition. So here's a thought, is think about times that you really truly have been intuitive, when the intuition was right versus wrong. Now, it's going to be hard to do this in hindsight, but if you're able to think back to when you had that intuition, where you felt it in your body, if you're able to do that, great. If you're not able to do it, from this moment forward, I want you to, when you have a feeling that you think could be intuition, I want you to take note of where you feel it in your body. Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it nowhere? For me, I don't even really feel it in my body at all. It's just simply a deep sense of knowing. It's like a thought in my head that I know is true. So take note of where you think you feel it in your body, if anywhere. Later, you're going to see the outcome of the event. If your intuition was right, connect that to that spot in the body. If your intuition was wrong, disconnect that. Okay, so what that means is that when I feel something in my stomach, that's generally my fear. Okay, that is not usually my intuition. And by being able to do that, I've been able to really discern which one's intuition and which one is not intuition. So it's a nice exercise that you can try. Now, that brings us to the exercises. Now, Nancy, she was asking about a heart heaviness. It felt like a rock in her third eye. So the first exercise I am going to give is for everybody, but especially Nancy. And this is a third eye. We're going to talk about a third eye massage. And just letting you know, Stephen asked about, like, wouldn't it be great to have a flashcard of a bunch of little exercises you could do when you can't do a big 30 or 60-minute practice to work on your third eye? And that's what I'm giving you right now. So any one of these little exercises will amplify your third eye. It will amplify your intuition. It may also strengthen your pineal gland. So you could do all of these together in a practice, or you could do any one of these individually, and they're all designed to be about 1 or 2 minutes, okay? All right, so the first one is third eye massage. So this is really great for if you feel that there's a heaviness here, but I think it's great for anybody because how often do we massage the third eye, right? We should always be like really massaging all parts of the body. And in fact, I'd like to do an episode at some point about Abhyanga, which is a self-massage practice. And I really think everybody should be trying it because we can't always afford to go to the masseuse. But at least here we can do a third eye massage. So what you're going to do is close your eyes here. And I would first start, you could take either both hands or one hand, whatever feels comfortable to you. And you're just going to place them right here in the center of the forehead. And just with a good amount of pressure, not too hard, not too soft, you're just going to simply massage, and whatever your intuition says, counterclockwise, clockwise, doesn't matter, whatever calls you to do here. So we're just going to massage this for a few minutes. I should say a few moments, but you can work up to a few minutes if you want. Okay, now, after you've done that for a bit, you're going to take your fingers so that the tips of the middle fingers touch, and you're going to place them right here on your forehead. And then, as though you're trying to pull the skin of your forehead apart, you're going to go ahead and pull here. And just very slowly pulling the skin of the forehead as though you're trying to pull it to the edges of the eyes. And then when you get to the edges of the eyes, you let go, and then bring the fingers back to the middle of the forehead, and then you're just going to repeat this. And you can do this again for up to a minute or two if you want. Now, when you're doing it, you may find that there's tension in the temples and in the jaw. Now remember, we talked about the throat being very connected. So all of this is connecting to the throat. So as you do this third eye massage, what you may eventually move to after that maybe minute or so is move into the temples, and then you can begin to massage the temples. And then if it feels good, you can bring them down into the jaws and start to massage the jaw as well. Okay, so even if you do this just for a few minutes, I can already feel a little bit of tingling in the third eye. And someone had asked a question about feeling tingling in the third eye, and that often is an indication that it is working. It's trying to open. Sometimes it does come in inopportune times, like she mentioned while she was driving. But so that's tough. That's a tough one because you can't really stop to address that. But if you, in the space of being kind of quiet, if you try some of these exercises like this, you may be able to stimulate the third eye in a similar way in a time when you're actually able to receive the messages. Okay, so the next thing you can do is the Hikini Mudra. A mudra is a hand gesture, typically a hand gesture, that is designed to bring in a certain energy into the body. So here in the Hikini Mudra, we take all the fingers and we touch them to their opposite fingers on the other hand. And it's like a little triangle. And then what you can do is you can bring it anywhere in the body, but you can also bring it up to the third eye. So when you're working on your third eye exercises, if this feels okay, sometimes it's going to feel a little bit tough in the shoulders. If that happens to you, just see if you can like bring your shoulders, drop your shoulders down a little bit so we don't have much tension there. And then just hold the Sakini Mudra. But you can also bring it anywhere in the body that's comfortable and just hold it while you are meditating. Okay, so the next thing is yogic eye exercises. So again, these are going to take like a minute or two to do. And so during yogic eye exercises, what you typically are going to do is you're going to be looking in different directions. So it's going to look something like look up, look down, look up, look down. Now I usually do 2 times and then I move to like a different direction. So up, down, up, down. Now look to the upper left and down to the lower right. Up to the upper left, down to the lower right. Down to the lower left, up to the upper right, down to the lower left, up to the upper right. And then you can repeat that again. So up, down, lower, upper left, lower right, upper left, lower right, lower left, upper right, lower left, upper right. And what you're going to see is you might actually start to feel some tension in this space. That's okay. That's what we want. Now do about 4, 5, 6 rounds of that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to rub your hands together and get some heat built up. And then you're going to place them on your eyes. Close your eyes and just feel that heat absorbed into your eyes. And then you can repeat it. And you can do that for up to a minute, 2 minutes, but it's a very quick little exercise that you can do. And if you do that, now again, none of these exercises are really going to do much if you just do them one time. So it's really going to require a commitment, like we talked about, of setting up a practice of maybe 5 minutes and just do a couple of exercises, call it a day, and then do that more days than you don't. Check in a month, in another lunar cycle, and see how things have changed. And I bet they will have. Now, there's also 2 breath exercises I'm going to end with, and yep, I think that's all we got. 2 breath exercises to end with. So the first one is called the 4-stroke breath. So now in the 4-stroke breath, what you're going to do is you're first going to start by bringing your hands into Fire Mudra. So in the Fire Mudra, you're going to interlace the fingers, and you're going to have, you're going to have the pointer fingers pointing up like this. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to bring that to, I usually bring it to like about the tip of my nose. So the idea here is that if you close your eyes, you can just see the tip of the fingers. And then what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes to 1/10. So what that means is it's not like, it's almost like squinting. So you just need to be able to still see, but not everything in front of you. But you can still see your fingers. And then during the 4-stroke breath, what you'll do is you'll inhale 4 strokes. So on 4 times, 4 quick strokes in through like an O-shaped mouth. So it's going to look like, and then on the exhale, you're just going to exhale. Now, many times people will say close the mouth on the exhale. That is the preferred way, but if that feels weird to you, you can exhale through the open mouth. So, but with the mouth closed, here's what it would look like. Okay, and then you're going to add in the hands. Close the eyes to 1/10. And then you're going to do that for about a minute to 2 minutes, okay? And you can do it kind of slow at first, and then you can speed up the strokes if you want as you go. There's a great exercise, and it's known to stimulate the third eye and open up your intuition. And then the final exercise I want to tell you about is one that I learned while I was in Sedona. It is a simple third eye meditative exercise. It doesn't take long. You can do this for a minute or 2 minutes, and you can do it alone or with any of these other practices. So it's kind of an interesting breath because most of the time when we breathe and we're holding the breath, we usually hold it at the top or we hold it at both spaces. But in this breath, you're going to hold it on the exhale. And it's going to feel kind of strange. But if you can do this, now I did this for up to 5 minutes in Sedona while I was at a vortex, and it definitely opened up my third eye. So I'm telling you this right now, you can do it for a couple minutes, but if you're able to work up to about 5 minutes, it can really be quite expansive. So what you do here is you're going to close your eyes, and then you're just going to breathe normally for a couple of breaths just to kind of reset yourself. And then when you're ready, you're going to exhale all your breath out, all your breath out. And at the bottom, you're going to hold your breath, okay? So there's no breath in you at all. And you're going to focus your intention on your third eye. So what you're going to do is you're going to look with your eyes closed, almost like you're looking up at the third eye from inside. So that space right above here. Now, when your breath needs to be, when you need more breath, you're going to take an inhale. And then you're going to exhale it all out. And you're going to hold it again at the bottom. And you're going to, again, focus on that spot. And what you may find is that if you do this over several cycles, several minutes of it, you're going to start to see this kind of pulsing. Some people call it white light. Some people call it, like I think it looks a little violet to me, but it's going to pulse right in the center with your eyes closed, right in where the center, where your third eye is. You're going to see that pulsing light. And that is a sign that you've got that third eye opening. Okay? So in future episodes, I will go in and talk a little bit more about this because this is a big exercise. And if you're really interested in it, in my membership, I'm going to give a whole entire practice, all these practices actually done out so that you can do them with me on a video. So if you're not in the membership, definitely get on the wait list or let me know about those 2 spots that are still left for now. All right, but I hope that some of these exercises helped. And if you are still having issues with your third eye or anything here you're confused about, definitely leave me a message here, DM me, let me know. And I will see you next time. I hope you guys have a great full moon and experience this energy. And I hope your dreams are open and expansive tonight. I hope that this full moon helps you expand your third eye. And until next time, blessed be.